And we are back once again with another video, so make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. We are doing our Oklahoma 2023 football predictions. So like I said, hit the subscribe button down below as we are on our way to 1,100 subscribers. Also, make sure that you like this video. If you enjoy it, comment your thoughts and opinions down below and share it with all your other Oklahoma friends. So before we get into it, one other thing that I need to go over is also make sure you check out the other college football channel that I have. The link will be up in the right-hand corner over there. The college football roundup. Make sure you check that one out. It will have weekly predictions of my game-by-game stuff with American Football Network, so check that out, as well as the website. Exclusive content will be going up there starting in a couple of weeks. So let's make our way over to Oklahoma's schedule. So Oklahoma starts off the year with a pretty easy slate of games, but really what it comes down to is the second half of the season when you really get into that after that bye week. You start off the year against Arkansas State, an easy win there. I think that this should be a pretty good game here for Dylan Gabriel and Brent Venables and the rest of the staff. It should be a pretty easy warm-up game. Arkansas State doesn't really have much to offer, and the Red Wolves aren't even a very good lower-level team in the FBS. Then you have SMU. I think you get the win here once again with SMU on the table. SMU a little bit disappointed that they got left out of the Big 12 expansion. Them and Memphis, both two teams that were possible Big 12 targets, just never made it to the actual table. And I think definitely a disappointment there. But I do think that overall Oklahoma should have a pretty easy win here with returning 7 offensive starters and 6 defensive starters. You should be in a good spot there. Then you have Tulsa you have to head to your first road game against Tulsa. To be honest, I am a little bit surprised that this game is a road game. It surprises me a little bit because I'm just surprised. But either way, to remove my surprise, I think you get a win here. I think that Tulsa, you've got a lot of pieces to replace, and this is just a Tulsa team that has not been as good since that couple of years ago when they had Zaven Collins on that defense and stuff like that, when they were a lot better and competing a little bit more than they are now. Then you have a road game against Cincinnati. This is an interesting matchup. Cincinnati being that Power 5 or that first Group of 5 team to actually make it to a playoff appearance, does not have their old coach in Luke Fickell as he moved his way towards Wisconsin. It creates an interesting setting for Cincinnati football with a new quarterback, a new coach, just a general new scheme. You're obviously in a new conference, and because of all this newness, I'm going to give the win to the Sooners. Then you have Iowa State coming to town, and by this point I do expect Oklahoma to be ranked, and Iowa State is one of those upset teams. They love to upset people. Matt Campbell's not very good at competing throughout an entire season, but what he is really good at is getting those upsets, and I don't think that this is going to be one of those times. I think that they get the win, and I think Oklahoma is 5-0 heading into the Texas Longhorn matchup of the Red River Shootout. With this game against Texas, I don't need to remind any Oklahoma fans. Last time you played Texas, it was 49-0, and it was an utter beatdown. It was a game that, wasn't very pretty whatsoever. And it's a Texas team that you had beaten the past 3 years. And I think that it was a tough way to start. That's where really all the training wheels fell off for Brent Venables. You already had 2 losses against TCU and Kansas State, but we found out that those were 2 of the best teams in the Big 12, the 2 best teams in the Big 12. If you want to look at who played in the conference championship game. But with this game, I just don't see Oklahoma being able to make up the 49-point gap. Even though I think that game was a little bit more of a fluke than anything else, I think Oklahoma has a lot of struggles that they need to work on their own hand. Dylan Gabriel is not as good as some people thought when he first came in, and I think that they should have known that. I was not as big of a Dylan Gabriel fan as some other people were. You can watch my prediction from last year. I believe I did a Oklahoma prediction last year. Then you have a bye week, and then you play UCF. Speaking of Dylan Gabriel, this is his former team. You got a home game against them. UCF, they're probably going to be one of the better teams coming into the Big 12 conference. You have a team that definitely has a little bit of work to do when it comes to just setting up in this type of conference. But overall, I do think that they're in a good spot. They have been since the Scott Frost tenure. And by the end of the day, I do think that Oklahoma wins. I just don't see them being able to get a good shot here. And I think that they will get a win here. Then you have Kansas that you have to go on the road for to Lawrence, and I have this as a loss. I think, you did beat Kansas last year. You beat them by 10 at home in a complete shootout of a game, 52-42. But here's the problem I have. I think Kansas is even better than they were last year. You have a much more experienced team, and you have to go on the road. I just see this as a bad combination in which you're going to have to work heavily in order to be able to get a win there. I think Kansas with Jalen Daniels is just a better team. I think Kansas is in a good shot to finish in the top 5 of the Big 12 this year with a lot of athletes coming in and starting to turn that program around with Lance Leopold. Then you have the Oklahoma State game. This one is in Stillwell this year. Last year, you did have it as a home game. You beat a ranked Oklahoma State team. And like I said, with both of these matchups, you beat them last year. You beat Kansas. You beat Oklahoma State. Both teams were ranked. But here's the problem. Oklahoma State, I think, is just in a better position as a program at the moment. What I saw last year, even though, yes, you lose your quarterback and Spencer Sanders, but this game is later on in this year. It's at the very end. And I think that it is just it is going to be a tough environment. And with it being a rivalry game, I'm going to give the win to a team that I think it's going to be 50-50. And I'm going to have to give it to the home team. So I'm going to give you a win there. Or a loss there, sorry. Then you have West Virginia coming to town. I think you win this game here. I think West Virginia is in a really tough spot. I think overall that program is in it has a very high likelihood of possibly firing their head coach. Oh, I'm trying to think of what his name is. I can't think of it. It'll come back to me in a second. But with West Virginia, you did lose a couple of pieces on that team, and overall, you're just not in a position that I think is just really good at all. I think that you're just Neil Brown, that's his name. But I think West Virginia, you lose your starting quarterback in JT Daniels. You lose your starting running back. You lose all of your wide receivers, basically, and you lose 4 defensive starters. I think that you're just in a tough spot here. Then you have a road game against BYU. This was one of the games that I struggled with the most. BYU is a solid team. They have a solid program, and I think overall they're in a good spot. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is a loss. I think it's a difficult place to play in Provo. It is not an easy environment. But because BYU has an experienced team, obviously, if you don't know much about how BYU football works or BYU athletics, because they're Mormon, they'll go on a 1 to 2 year long mission trip before they start college, or the year after they start college, they'll take some redshirt years. And that, well, they come back a lot older, and it makes it a lot tougher to beat BYU. And I just think Oklahoma's in a tough position overall. Then finally, you have your final game of the season. It's a Friday night matchup against TCU, and I think that you do get a win here. I think you finish with the 8-4 record. I think that this is definitely a better year for Brett Venables, but I don't think that it is good enough in which you are able to just completely run over the competition and get to 9-3, get to 10-2, make it where it was under Lincoln Riley. I just don't see it, but I do think that it is an improved year. I don't think you finished with the losing record. So that's going to wrap up today's video. Hit 2 videos down below. Hit the subscribe button up here. Help me reach 1,100 subscribers as we are marching our way closer and closer to that goal. And as always, have a great day. Bye, guys.